Hey there, Chris. You're here early as usual. Thank you, Blaze of Spikes, for following. Thank you for the Prime subscription, Blaze. How you guys doing? Hey, Space Benui, Arstio, Neo, and everyone else. I still have to figure out why those notifications are playing the sound twice every time, but another time. So I'm gonna wait a few minutes until we get to about 5 minutes in, and then I'll be starting. The stream will be a pretty short one, relatively between like half an hour to an hour tops. But as you can see by the title, this is Emil's story. So, wonder what is gonna happen here. I'm doing pretty good, Neo. Hope you're doing good too. And as was said in the announcement, this is a solo stream, so no players are going to be here this time. This is going to be me. All the pressure is being put on me. How fun. I think it'll be good though. I think it'll be okay. Should be fine. Should be okay. Nothing bad will possibly happen. A broken universe? Ah, that's just a saying. It'll be fine. Oranges topped with chili sauce, chili salt seasoning, and spicy powder. Nice. I guess you could say those oranges were blazed and spiked. Anyways, we're getting close to the 5 minute mark, so just get into the mood and see how things go. As a note, while I am going through this stream, I will probably not be able to read stream chat. So I'll be going, it'll be for the long run until it's finished, and then after that, I'll pay attention to stream chat and answer any questions you guys might have. So, without further ado, I think we can get started. Are you guys ready? Because I'm not ready, I'm never ready. But it'll be okay. No? Well, that's too bad, Chris. I think it'll be fine. Alright, Aether. If you want to load up the log, let's get to it. Have you ever looked around and wondered how it all went wrong? How things got the way they are? What could have been done better? You look up and you see a sky ripped apart by a universe ruined by our abundant curiosity. No, I'm not being dramatic. You might expect this to be some crazy movie or hear of it in a prose, a figure of speech or an allegory, but no. What I say is very real, by every definition of the word. Where do I even start? Well, my name would probably be a good place. I am Emil a Mian Shao and one of two twins born on May 28th. What year? Well, no one keeps track now. But we'll say roughly 6,000 years after the first calamity. Can you believe it? We've had 3 world calamities 3,000 years apart. They always say third time's the charm, but I don't think they meant it like this. Granted, that's not counting the numerous major events that happened in between. I'm getting off track. Let me back up a bit. I said I was one of twins. My sister is Ariel. Which means, well, beast of the creator. Why? Hard to say. You'd never tell it by talking to her, but she's not someone you want to piss off either. Not that it's really ever easy to do that. See, she's highly empathic, rather, she's blessed with empathy. Capital E. She always knows exactly how you feel, even when you don't know it yourself. And she always strives to make people happy. A rarity in this broken world. She's the sweetest person you'll ever meet. She also has 2 tails. People say it's a birth defect, but I think it partly has to do with her special ability. You know how the old humans who had longer hair could sense disturbances? Or how Pokemon with whiskers could feel vibrations that helped them know of incoming disaster. Ariel's tails may be what allow her to feel what others feel. In fact, I'm certain of it. It also has nothing to do with the fact that our father's a floatzel. We ruled that out already. Anyways, I'm getting at another tangent. My name? Well, it's supposed to mean to strive to success. I guess it was given to me in the hope that maybe I'd be able to fix things in this universe. Imagine. the one person changing everything. Just like that. You really think of it as some sort of silly old fairy tale. That's where things get interesting. So, let's talk about how things got this way. You ever hear the old warnings not to bring advanced science or technology into a primitive society? Doesn't belong there. It caused disruption in their growth, maybe it even wiped them out. Now, what about a society which advances too quickly? Now, there's where I'm gonna have to stop you making conclusions. It wasn't that we advanced too quickly. It's that we wandered into grounds we weren't properly prepared to enter. It's sort of a snowball effect. When something gets started, it rapidly picks up. After some millennia, the world came up with the steam engine. Then they came up with the vacuum tube. And then the microchip. That all happened within a few decades. And then we came to quantum computing, manipulating the four states of a spin of an electron, fuzzy logic, quantum communications, and then we delved deeper. When we learned how to observe the particle in its fluid state, we learned to manipulate it, turn that chaos into order, and learn to make it what we wanted. We were playing with the fundamental properties of the universe, yet we didn't know how to deal with the consequences of such knowledge. The common saying is ignorance is bliss. What if we'd never known any of this? What if we never learned? Maybe none of this would have ever happened. But a lot of us believe that we learned the wrong things. We learned how to control these aspects, not how to control them properly. And that's where we made the grave mistake. We tried all these new possibilities and tried even more possibilities with them. We dug a hole, we struck gold, and then we struck magma. And it burned us. It flowed out and spread like a vent and kept under far too much pressure. When the balloon was punctured, it popped. That's what happened to our universe. We got so excited that we didn't think about the what ifs. What if we did this? What if something went wrong? Something went wrong. Horribly. Horribly wrong. And we paid for it. As we evolved, we started tapping into properties which would allow us to do things most wouldn't even have developed naturally. Psionic abilities, manifestations of previously hidden properties, conversion of energy, all with a thought. A single thought to control reality. The mind is as real as the universe it's in. In this case, it's literal. One of the rarer qualities is being able to draw multiple traits to a single individual through just entanglement. All you'd have to do is touch someone and you can adapt your being to gain, to understand what they can do. Assimilation. Then there's empathy. Capital E. The ability to feel that which another feels, down to latent emotions. Joy, anger, curiosity, pain. Empathy has existed since time immemorial, yet at this level it goes deeper. But even fewer can use it to the extent that my sister can. Fewer even than those who have assimilation. She could feel everything. The longing for a better life, the desire to make things different, all the happiness, sadness, lust, remorse, rage of everyone around her. The universe, crying. Down to the core of everything, she could feel suffering. The universe has a mind of its own, and when it was torn apart, there was pain. We all knew things went to hell. We all knew we screwed up. The foundation we stood on was cracked, and we saw it happen when the very sky and fabric of reality ripped apart. Have you ever looked into a void and seen nothing? Have you ever stared in and seen it stare back? The universe was glaring daggers of what we've done. But it took Ariel to see just what was really going on in that blackness. Chaos defaults into order, but there's always chaos. We can cover it up, but it's always there. And when we broke those boundaries, we let it in. So now we come to the big question. How do we fix it? How do we fix this broken universe we've created? I wish I had an answer. Everything we've come up with tells us it's already too late. When the rip happens, it spreads. The whole thing falls apart. Remember when I talked about the snowball? That's what happens when things go too far. So, how do we stop the snowball when it's gotten so large? Do we put something in front of it? A wall? Maybe it'll stop in its place if we do something equally as big. No. That's nonsense. It just asks for trouble. Maybe we can deter it, guide it away somewhere it won't be a problem. Somewhere we won't have to worry about it anymore. But someone will. If it's not our problem, it's someone else's. How can we live with ourselves if we dropped it off to someone else to deal with? Then, how about melting the snowball? No, let's just create a flood. It's all gotta go somewhere, right? We can't simply get rid of it. That'd be like trying to blow a meteor crashing into a planet when it's already gotten too close. It's all gonna rain down across the land. That won't solve anything. We may as well just go back with the big wall proposition. How do we fix it? Every solution had an equal or greater problem that made it impossible to work with. The only thing we came up with was stopping it before it got as big as it was. Go back in time. I know what you're thinking, Emil, that's stupid. Let's just create a grandfather paradox and you wouldn't be solving anything, or you'd create an alternate universe, or things are better, but your universe is still suffering. I know. But I have another idea. What if we went back and we got to the root of the problem, learned what led to things going this way to begin with? There's a lot we don't know. About Cassia, about Kata, the whole world. But studies have led to the possibility of a cycle. Kata was far more advanced than Cassia. The weird part, Cassia was far ahead in time than Kata. How does scientific advancement go in reverse? What caused them to fall back as far as they did? That's the first calamity. After things went to hell in Kata, everything seemed to go back to a primitive state. Cassia, as the books say, was underdeveloped before the second calamity, but after that it progressed again. One calamity pushed it back, one pushed it forward. It's like a switch was flipped each time. The third calamity, the one that broke the universe, ceased all development. Put us in a stasis, because it was so bad that we became terrified of tinkering even more. And so, the switch was flipped again, and this time, it snapped. The switch is now stuck in place as evolution decays in a deteriorating universe. So we decided we should figure out what caused the other two flips. Maybe, if we learn the cause, we can fix things before they get too bad. As much as has happened in these two times, records are disturbingly scarce. If changing the past is out of the question, then maybe we can at least learn more about it, and see if we can find a way to undo this disaster. It's far-reaching, I know, but it's the best we had to work with. When all other plans just lead to more destruction, what else can you do but go with what causes the least damage? It's something. As I look up at the sky torn asunder, the view is the same as it's always been. I wasn't born when things broke apart. That happened years before. I was born into a world already in darkness. Sort of reminds me of that old tale in another timeline where a grass type was born into a place with no light, frozen in time and unmoving. So that grass type grew to adapt to the darkness and sought to see light for the first time. Interesting enough, he also did so by going back in time. Maybe I'm like that grass type. I don't know. I'm just trying to find some connections, some possible way to look at this positively, with some hope that maybe this will work. I'm lost in my thoughts, but things start snapping to reality when a voice calls to me. Theano. I had said that assimilation is a rare quality, rare ability, and he's one of the few who has it. Interestingly, the one quality it is unable to draw is empathy. Theano and Ariel are incompatible, which is why they must work together. She fills the void he can't touch. In that regard, they're both assigned to this task. I know the question is burning bright and growing unbearable. What is my ability? Well, I don't have one. At least not conventionally. My thing is, I can learn about things very quickly. My intellect. It's the reason I was put on this task. The things I know and what I can uncover has proved very useful. So my job is to examine our findings in the past and document them. Theano is to draw what he can from the old world and draw it for research. And Ariel, well, she has another task. She's not going to Kato with Theano and me. Her job is going to Cassia and learning about the culture there. We can't just look into the first calamity after all, we had to learn about the second calamity as well. We believe her quality can help her see the true nature of the ones in that time, and how they managed to change in the 3 millennia. After we've collected sufficient data on the old world, we are to return here, pull it all together, and examine it for a solution. Theano has been a constant reminder of this goal, and aided me in the preparations to go back in time. There's, however, a problem. Theano hasn't quite been the same since we first met him. He's lived far longer than we have, being a Salamence and all, and with that age he's seen the events that led to the eventual sundering of this universe. But more, he saw the pieces that trickled in through the cracks from other timelines. As the years went on, he learned he wasn't alone. He wasn't the only one of himself. We researched this phenomenon and learned that some very few people share qualities almost identical to those of other timelines. Almost, but not fully. There are varying backgrounds and lives, but the one whose qualities were the closest match to all the mirrors, as we call them, Theano. Every timeline we researched, he was always had a sister, and he was always had an ability relating to assimilation. In some timelines, he may have loved his sister, and some hated. In this timeline, Verithrius was one of many victims to the universe's instability. Her death played a huge part in his desire to fix things, and be a part of this task. However, we also learned that in every timeline, Theano was a destroyer. Some succeeded, some failed, but they always went down the same road. When we came across this information, we insisted Theano not dwell on it. Despite his numerous similarities, this was one thing he couldn't share with the others. He wasn't he wasn't that sort of person. We did everything we could to convince him this wasn't on purpose. This wasn't his purpose. He's come to his senses, we believe, but I've been tasked to keep an eye on him while working with him. He doesn't know it, and I'd like to not betray his trust, so I've kept a secret. I feel like a stalker, and it's not a feeling I enjoy. I just hope we can solve the disaster before it becomes a problem. He asked to make sure that I'm okay, since I've been in another one of my episodes of absent-mindedness. With all the things that I know, my mind can wander, so I often space out in the middle of things and have to be pulled back into focus. I reassure him things are fine and before he tells me to check on Ariel. Today is the day we are due to go back in time, so I should make sure she's ready to go. When I acknowledge his request, he returns to the base to make his last preparations. One would assume, reading this, that we are in a common city, or at least in some populated place of the world. However, things are a lot stranger than what might be expected. With reality on the fritz, travel isn't quite like what you'd see in the movies, the old movies. Walking on foot or driving in a vehicle to get from one place to another is a foreign concept to us. Rather, we have safe zones, where we've set up protective barriers, keeping the collapse of reality out. Bubbles of stable space, we call them. Some may be a few kilometers across, some the size of a small room, but they generally keep important resources, such as water, energy capsules, and nutritional substance for us to do our work. Getting between these bubbles requires the use of a displacement bracelet. Everyone of significance has them, including myself. They can manipulate time and space to allow one to teleport. Phase jumping between bubbles takes a significant amount of power and must only be used for important tasks. Admittedly, I've been doing more than my fair share of jumping, so yeah, that hasn't made the higher-ups happy with me. It's for the better, I swear. I come to a station and set my blue bracelet to jump 4 units over. That's 1/10 of the allotted units each person has per day. The units are the calculated distance between certain bubbles, where 20 is the total size of what our star system is. What was our star system. After a minute of charging, I cross into phase and arrive at my destination within seconds. A little zone isolated in empty space containing the equivalent of a city block with a few residential buildings. It's a short venture down the small road to reach a building my sister and I call our home. It's a house separate from the apartment buildings, which comprising most of the zone, yet it's much larger than what others are living. The additions include a small section of the land belonging to us, and a somewhat larger entry room. People must live minimalistically if we are to survive, so we have little more than necessities in terms of personal belongings. Still, we make up for the lack of luxury items by taking activities outside. As I approach the house, I am greeted with the warmth that is home. Despite what little we have, a place to call our own and come back to every day is always a meaningful thing. Coming inside, I can see my sister making her final preparations before her head perks and her head perks up on my arrival. She's always been good at sensing when someone's around, which can be attributed to her empathic trait. She turns to me with a smile, one which I return equally. Then I set my bag down on the table to take a moment to rest. I never really knew the love of another but my sister. Growing up in this world, our mother was rarely home until the day that she was taken from us during a phase jump. Our father was there, but he was always busy training us to defend ourselves, He was always busy training us to defend ourselves, to be able to settle down and care as a parent would in the old movies. Such luxuries weren't often afforded when the universe literally wants you gone at every turn. It's why we have compulsory military service here. He was the one assigned to train us, and then he fell to an illness which made him weaker by the year until it finally claimed him. That isn't to say we didn't care for them, of course, but we weren't spared much time to show it. Those familial bonds were always shared between my sister and myself, so we grew closer than anyone else. Every return home was always the same, my sister asking how I'd been today, with my responses being that things could always be worse, and her saying that it's better than before. It sort of become a routine to go through this exchange, to the point that you'd almost think you'd become tired of it. But it's this familiarity that meant things were okay. It's something you take for granted. When it doesn't happen, then you know something's probably wrong. Then you wish it did. We take a moment to hug, and then I tell her Theano's at the base, waiting for us. It's sort of been surreal, the quiet we've had these past few days. We know that soon we'll be leaving this place, and won't be back for some time, so we've been taking extra care to appreciate what we've had before we wouldn't be able to see it again for a while. Could be days, months, even years. Something we've had quite a bit of attachment to is a pair of gems my sister and I were given in our early lives. A blue one and a pink one. They're nothing particularly special, but they've acted as something of a sibling keepsake. Ariel and I agreed to leave these here as something to come back to. You'd think you'd take something like this with you, right? A part of home, of course you want to keep it around all the time, but leaving them here was a promise to come back. A promise she and I would keep, no matter what. Theano was never one particularly fond of emotional attachments to ordinary objects. He saw things as a necessity, and if something wasn't needed, it would be discarded. He was efficient in this regard. I don't think it's always been this way. I've heard that he used to be rather free-willed and passionate about the smaller joys in life. Losing Verithrius might have taken this away from him. There is the occasional time that I spotted him lingering around something, pondering its value before leaving it. I think there's a part of him that still wants to hold on to what was there, but he refuses when it'll get in the way of his work. Ariel takes a moment in the other room to gather some things, while I wander the lounge room to take in the sight of what I won't have for the foreseeable future. One part of me wants to tear up at the idea of leaving, but Another reassures me that I'll be back here in time. I shouldn't be worried about anything, right? But I couldn't help but miss it. I grow lost in thought, as I always have, but my sister soon pulls me back into the world, in a literal sense, by pulling me from behind in an embrace. It startles me for a second, but I settle down and sigh before putting my paw on hers. I know. It'll be okay. If there's anyone there to make me smile when I'm down, it's her. I'll miss those moments we have. When we're ready, we take another brief few seconds to gaze at the gems we left on the table before I take my bag and we leave the house. We'll be back. We will be back. The trip back down the street is uneventful, as to be expected. We didn't make a whole lot of acquaintances here. We mostly worked with others when we needed to, but otherwise, we've all kept to ourselves and focused on surviving and finding a way to make things better. When we arrive back at the station, my sister and I set our bracelets to jump. The return would be 4 units, but when going together, we'd draw more attention. It's always advised to jump in nothing more than pairs, to keep our profile in phase low. This is why it is a strange occurrence that our mother was alone when she was attacked. It's rare, but it can happen. She got unlucky, and because of it, we never saw her again. I know what you're probably thinking, wondering, how do you get attacked during phase jump? What could possibly come after you in the few seconds you're shooting yourself faster than light from one point of the star system to another? What is phase space? That's where you're about to find out. Phase isn't as safe as one makes it seem. When Ariel and I trigger our jump, it's like a beacon from the point we left, leading to the whole universe to us. It disturbs the emptiness and quiet. Usually it goes unnoticed. It's why it's just the two of us. A big group would cast a light that's spotted well across the phase. But us? It's actually not quite as unlikely as it sounds. When there's an entire universe, all it takes is one entity to notice before a whole swarm comes after you. The interference breaks you out of phase. It leaves you in open space. Not the kind of space that, if you're without a suit, you swell up like a balloon from lack of pressure or shrivel up from cosmic radiation. No. You can survive at least the space itself. You're probably not going to survive what's in it, though, if you stay too long. Most of the time, when your jump is stopped, you just reset your bracelet to continue. There's enough charge to resume after a minute, but you have to defend yourself until you do. A signal is even sent to the other stations, alerting others your jump was stopped. If anyone sees it, they may perhaps come to help you, but that itself is also a dangerous task, and one not many take. That's why everyone has to be able to defend themselves. The universe spotted us. It spotted us, and it's going to make it known it spotted us. The light surrounding our bubble in phase space cracks, and my sister and I look around. We know exactly what's happening. It's happened a number of times before, and it's no different this time. When the crack happens, we prepare ourselves for the worst to come. A second crack, and we can see space around us start to crawl, before a bubble shatters. You remember how I said the universe is crying? How it's glaring daggers at us for what we did? When you look into the void, it's like looking into all that hatred. We're in that void. And soon, it becomes more apparent when the void starts to fill with the terrifying screams of all the cosmic beings hiding within. And then, it's not much of a void anymore. What comes after us can only be described as shadows of all those who died by the universe's collapse. Not millions or billions on a single planet. It's far more reaching than that. Research led to trillions who lost themselves. The theory is that the universe warped those lost souls. Stars left in the sky would mark someone who had passed on, but in the void, there are no stars. These souls are blackened and twisted, but they need to be released and put to rest. After all, the restless will never know peace. That's the theory. And when the shadows surround us, it takes all in our power to deflect them. An aura sphere which explodes on impact, causing those surrounding it, or catching those surrounding it in its light. A stone edge which clears a path and gives you some time to recuperate. A hidden power manipulated to be the sort of energy most effective on what it touches. These were things we learned, and more to defend ourselves. We took what those in the old world had and made them even more effective to take down what threatens us. Between the two of us, we could get through this. It only takes a minute for us to go back to jump, so that's all we needed to make out. It's all they needed to bring us down. As though the universe were hell-bent on making sure we didn't go unpunished, the shadows keep coming. They keep coming, and they have one goal in mind, making sure we don't get away. This must be what our mother had to face. But it's the two of us. We can get through this. We could, right? What sort of cosmic being do we piss off? Dauga, Palkia? Arceus? They're long gone. The gods can't save us. If anything, they're probably as twisted as the shadows that keep coming after us. It's difficult. It's too difficult. As we drop to our knees from exertion, we wonder what went wrong. We'll come back. We have to. Help us. As though answering our call, a flamethrower comes out of seemingly nowhere, cutting through the darkness of lost souls and creating a blast that scatters them all away from us. A piercing glare comes through space, embodied by a black figure almost impossible to see in the void. The only thing standing out being a pair of red wings, dark red wings on either side of it. A Salamence. Theano has come to save us. With a roar, he strikes down entire groups of them in a vicious onslaught of Dragon Claw while deflecting oncoming shadows with a Dragon Tail. It gives us enough time to reset our bracelets, as well as him, and when the time comes, we resume jump and escape this place. We made it. We made it through. If not for Theano, we'd have been finished. But we made it through. His rumbling growl when we arrived makes his annoyance clear. Well, annoyance might not be the right word. Had it been someone else perhaps, but it was us. We're important, he says as such. If we're lost, the universe may very well be lost with us. So why does it want us gone? Well, think back to that story of the grass type who grew up in the world without light. The being of time itself grew so twisted by the darkness that it no longer wished to restore time, but instead preserved the state it fell into. That's the state of our universe. It's been warped to insanity, and will do anything it can to make sure it stays that way. We have to fix things. Theano insists we take extra care of ourselves. The value that we have cannot be exaggerated. The mission is dependent on the three of us, and he won't allow it to fail. You'd almost think that he saw us as family. Maybe it's not so far-fetched to think that he's actually grown attached. It wouldn't be ridiculous to think that he has some closeness to us. After all, what does he have if not us? We can't take that for granted. He ensured that we'd get it back in time if it's the last thing he did. He would fix this dying universe, whatever it takes. When we finally settled down from that nerve-wracking encounter, we take a moment to figure out where to go next. Ario mentioned the garden that we always went to when things were calm. Theano never really cared for such things, but he often accompanied us when we insisted on going. It's to keep us safe, he said, but it might be a silly thought to think that he actually does enjoy some time there. I like to imagine us elements in a garden of flowers, just taking in the view and the fresh air brought by all the various plants. He should really relax and unwind sometimes. It's unhealthy to be that constantly focused on the task at hand. It's going to be the last time we see the garden for a while. Theano can't deny us such fleeting delights. So we make a detour to the street, down the street before... we make a detour down the street to visit, before we go back to the base. It's only a block away after all, we can afford that, right? The garden actually serves a greater purpose than simply being pretty, of course. Each zone has one, to supply oxygen where it'd otherwise be limited. After all, a planet could only be inhabited when such is in abundance, right? Plant life takes the excess carbon dioxide and turns it into oxygen for other organic life to thrive. It's a codependence. One we've taken very seriously since the universe was crippled. When we arrive, it's something of an open area akin to the parks in the old movies. One would think it'd be more efficient to just have the plants in pods, neatly organized in rows to do their work. But we don't believe in such treatment. As the universe itself has proven it lives and feels, so do plants. You wouldn't lock a bay leaf or a trophies in a cage, so why would you lock a tree or a flower in a little square space where it has no room to grow and live? We've taken care to give as much respect to them as we do each other. That's made the garden an unusually pleasant place to visit, where the other places are built more systematically and dull. It's an old saying in militaries that a soldier's effectiveness will degrade with their emotions. The world can't be efficient if efficiency is in the way of The world can't be efficient if efficiency gets in the way of comfort. The fleeting desires are what allow us to work as we should. So, even though we eat for survival, there's always an element of enjoyment we make sure to have. So, the food has to be pleasant. The few places that there are left that have been... The few places there are to have that enjoyment are among the most valued places in this universe, because they take our mind away from the dreariness that surrounds us. For just a moment, we don't have to look at the void, we can see color, and it gives us life. It's something Ariel has especially taken a fondness of, so she asks us to come here often. She's almost immediately drawn to a flower in particular she has a favor for, the tulip. She often goes into the bushes which have them and takes one to put in her ear. In action I smile too, as it adds to her charm. Theano is nearby watching, and you'd almost swear you could see a hint of a smile on his face. Something has to take that grumpy look away, even if for a second. Even so, as delightful as the garden is, those are fleeting pleasures after all. We don't have long to stay. And though it's something we wish to spend an eternity in, we have a task. Who knows? Maybe the old world will have many of these gardens, a flourish of life as far as can be seen. And maybe Ariel will have many tulips to adorn herself. The prospect is as delightful as it is unnerving. The light of the old world may be too much for us to bear. One can only hope it's not the case, though. After a little longer, we decide it's time to move on with what we have to do, leaving the garden. We take one last look at it, and appreciate the simplicity in its nature, yet the importance it has in our lives. We turn to our objective, the base, where we will begin our mission to the past. It's a short trip, but one which seems drawn out by the anticipation of the end. The closer we get, the longer it seems to take, as though it was stretching out further, and every step we take just pushes it away more and more. But eventually, we do make it. A lifetime spanned within minutes, as the universe watches intently. Now it can only wait. As we come to a building which has served as our base of operations, it's unassuming in appearance. No more than what seems like an office building, yet it serves its purpose. Theano taps the black bracelet on his foreleg against the screen by the door, and it makes a beep in response before the door opens, allowing us in. Even though we've been here many times before, I can feel myself hesitating to step in. The anticipation of what's come almost makes me keeps me in place. And it takes Ariel's paw on my shoulder to get me back and get me the nerve to go on. I look at her briefly before entering the building after Theano, and she follows me in. What we come to is similar to the jump stations. However, the machine is a bit larger and more complex. This is it. We charge our bracelets here, and there's no turning back. We look at one another. This will be the last time I see my sister in some time. Theano and I will be going to Kada, and Ariel to Cassia. Thousands of years apart. But we'll see each other again. I insisted to go back to the same day we left in our year, at least so that we can keep track of our ages. While it was difficult to calculate the periods, particularly with the time dilation since the universe's collapse, we've managed to come to an exact date for each part of our mission. It put us off a few months, but today is estimated to be the day before the first calamity. While Ariel will be going to a much calmer point in time. I can only hope that she will have less danger to deal with than us. With all our research on the threats of the old world, we made preparations to protect ourselves from powers such as the Binding of Premonitorius, or the black mark of Necrozma. So long as our bracelets remain functional, we should be safe from the higher powers of those times. Our abilities should also do well enough against anyone who should try and attack us otherwise. So all we have to do is observe, collect information, and make it back home safe. Here's hoping it all goes well. As we give our farewells, we set our bracelets to charge, synchronize them to our destinations, and start the jump. Not through phase space, but through time. The mission is now underway. Time will be our adversary. Let us make it home safe. I never did tell you, did I? I may have lied about my ability. Separating my consciousness. I hope I don't ever have to do such a thing, though. Thank you all for coming. While this may not have been quite as well as I had hoped, I hope you all enjoyed. If there are any questions, I think I can answer them next few minutes before the stream ends. So, viewers, what did you think? Fragment of Emil from session 43 was intentionally separated from him, yes. As Emil said, he lied about his ability. And now, I bring us to the most important part of the session, the picture which was drawn about this entire story. Emil, Theano, and Ariel in the garden. And as has been the person who drew most of my other pictures, you can thank Belle for this. And yes, there was indeed a time that we didn't need to kill Theano. As has been determined in every timeline, Theano is a destroyer. So, the details of this picture. You can see Theano, and you can see his little black bracelet wrapped around his forepaw. You can also see, if you look up at the sky, the black rip, the void, cut across the entire space. Hey, Thousand, we're just about to end. But, as usual, this stream will be posted as a VOD to YouTube. So it will be saved for good. And what's their question, Chris? X's 8 tail with Bryce's tail. That is unclear. It was said in every timeline Theano was a destroyer, but we don't know if there was ever one where he wasn't. See you, Arzadale. Hope you had a good time. So, we won't be rating anyone this stream, since it was a fairly short stream, about an hour long. But I do hope that you all enjoyed yourselves, and if you have any further questions, they can all be answered in the Discord server. So, now we won't be rating anyone this time, but I do need to take some time to settle down and relax. This was definitely a hard one. But yes, I will, Bryce. Thanks. So, everyone, I hope you enjoyed yourselves for this hour of stream, this solo session, and as always, we will be back next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific time. So, be ready for session 44 as we have passed the 1-year mark. Happy anniversary to After the Storm. I wish you guys farewell until next week. Good night, everyone.